But today we're going to talk about kind of some of the situations and changes that have been happening over the past few weeks to month as the COVID pandemic really starts to grow. It has been affecting a lot of businesses out there, and there are a lot of opportunities for support, assistance, and development right now. So today we're going to give a really quick overview into the SBIR and STTR programs, just in case, kind of play catch up for anyone that's online that doesn't know about these federal programs. We're going to talk very briefly about some of the agency responses that have happened thanks to COVID-19 and how some of these federal agencies are changing either policies, changing the ways they kind of approach working with businesses, or changing some of the novel ideas and innovations that they're looking at that can actually start to address some of these issues. And then we're going to talk about some of the other avenues of support, particularly like the SBA programs, as well as Mariah Tamar from the Office of Science and Technology out of the New Mexico Economic Development Department is going to talk about some of the New Mexico specific areas of assistance. And then we're going to talk about how the Arrowhead Center at New Mexico State University can help you navigate some of these different issues, some of these problems, and some of the other assistance that we offer for affected businesses. So very briefly, the federal government runs a program called the SBIR and STTR programs. SBIR stands for Small Business Innovation Research, and STTR stands for Small Business Technology Transfer. The really important factor with these programs to kind of key into is they are a way for the federal government to actually inject research and development dollars into small businesses. So a lot of those grant monies that come around for R&D out of the federal agencies that you always hear about, big universities winning or big federal labs winning, some of that can actually be used by small businesses to take an innovative idea and make a commercial product out of it. It's really the government's way to help small businesses grow, develop, and at the end of the day, make more money because the federal government wants to collect more taxes for sales tax and gross receipts taxes, employment taxes, things like that. So when you grow, they actually grow as well, and they kind of make more off of businesses. But one of the big factors with these programs is the fact that they are a seed fund program. So what that means is they're non-equity bearing. They can actually inject dollars into their business, and they don't want any part of your business. They don't want any part of the idea. They just want to see really neat ideas get out there into the commercial market. With these programs, there are 12 agencies. It's actually 11 agencies on 12 departments that participate. And each one of these has their own special focus. It's just like with anything research related, certain agencies are going to focus on certain types of research. Some of them are going to be more contracting style, where they're actually looking at people to bring solutions to them, like the Department of Defense or NASA. And some of them just want to see cool stuff, hit the market, like USDA or NSF. But one thing to keep in mind is it's just like with any kind of customer discovery you do, with any kind of validation and market research you do, you want to approach the right people. So for instance, National Science Foundation really looks at anything science and engineering except for drug discovery and clinical trials. So whether you're working on something that has geological prospects, whether you're working on something that a new physics formulation, whether you're working on something that's an advanced material that can be strapped to a spaceship, NSF is interested in it because they're science dorks. Okay? I'm a dork myself. I love science stuff. And they're the same way. They want to see those ideas grow. Whereas Someone like Department of Energy really focuses down on energy. They want to focus on things like energy storage, energy transmission, new and novel renewable technologies for energy, data analytics for energy usage and consumption. They really focus on things that are energy related. And someone like USDA is food and agriculture. So whatever you're doing that's food related, agriculture related, wood products related, ranching related, USDA wants to know about. But if you're working on something that's actually a new process for taking geological sampling and making research off of it, you're not going to approach USDA because geology just isn't their specialty. They want to know about food and ag. So you're going to have to make sure that whatever you're looking at and whatever you're working on, whatever your innovative idea is, that you're approaching the right agency and that you're looking at what their research is. Because these agencies are federally mandated to actually work within a specific discipline. And they're mandated to actually look at ideas, look at pushing forward research that aligns with their goals as an organization. But there are some commonalities across both the SBIR and STTR programs. And the big one is that these programs focus on innovation and commercialization. So any idea has to be innovative. It has to actually be unique. It can't be out there already and you're just making an incremental change to a product. It has to be something that's going to kind of wow people. But it doesn't necessarily mean high tech. There have been some things that have been funded that are kind of very low tech processes, like PTSD comics for returning veterans that the Department of Defense funded, or cowpots, which literally took manure and processed it into a recyclable vase to put flowers and plants in that USDA funded. So it doesn't have to be Star Trek. You don't have to fire your DeLorean up to 88 miles an hour, but it has to be unique, different, and really just inventive. But one of the other factors here, when we talk about commercialization, that idea has to have some commercial validity. So there has to be a product that can make it, that can be made out of it. Because commercial merit is kind of the other guiding principle for these programs. They don't actually tell you how you have to commercialize it. So you don't have to be looking at something that's going to sit on the end cap of every Walmart across America and whatever other countries Walmart is in. But it has to have some kind of market that you can fit into and some customer that you're going to sell it to at the end. So again, kind of the big factor for these programs and why they're interesting to businesses is it's risk-free dollars. It's not a loan. You don't have to pay the money back. The government wants no part of your idea. They want no part of your business. They are non-dilutive, which means they don't take any equity out. And it's kind of similar to any of the processes that people have been through where they go and try and seek third-party investment. Because really, you're putting together a pitch, you're looking at your market, you're knowing your customer, you know what your product will be, and you're pitching the idea to them, just like you would do to venture capitalists or angel funders, anyone like that. And the last reason is it provides a priority position for sole source sales to the government. And this can actually be a very huge thing for anyone, particularly now in this time period, that is looking at procurement and wants to be a contractor and sell, pallets of toilet paper or what have you to a DoD base. This vehicle allows you to be a sole source so that you're not competing your idea against, other big companies that are potentially making toilet paper, like I don't know who does it commercially. All I can think of is Charmin, and I don't think they do commercial sales. But ideas like that, where you have the ability to just come in and say, they like my product, I want to directly sell to them. I don't want to compete against these guys that can cut down their profit margins to pennies just because they do the volume. So there's a lot of reasons why these programs really make sense for business development. So with that background out of the way, now we're going to talk about how these agencies have been responding to the COVID-19 situation and how they've kind of evolved some of their processes, some of their programs, and what they're really kind of focusing on and what they're trying to focus on that answers these burning needs and these burning problems. So the very first agency we're going to focus on is, of course, the National Institutes of Health. So NIH looks at everything health, health tech, biomed, biotech, anything that's going to make people healthy across America. So obviously they're going to have a lot of opportunities. For NIH, NIH is actually made up of the Health and Human Services Department. So it's the National Institutes of Health, which are 27 different institutes that focus on very specific kind of medical methodologies or medical interventions. Like you have a National Institute on Aging, a National Institute on Mental Health, the National Center for Advancing Transitional Sciences, which tries to put in kind of new techniques into hospitals, into doctors' offices, things like that. But HHS is not only made up of NIH, but also the FDA, so the Food and Drug Administration, as well as the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. And at this point, with everything going on, people should probably have the CDC website bookmarked and checking that thing daily. But because they focus on health, because they focus on medicine, and because they focus on things that are going to help people just live longer, to be perfectly blunt, they're going to kind of have the most opportunity when it comes to looking at making strides and making health interventions. With the NIH, they actually fund under kind of two different vehicles, particularly when you talk about the SBIR and STTR programs. One of them is their omnibus, where they just look at everything health related. You kind of pick your institute, you pick where your medicine is being focused towards, and you approach them. And they give you some overall guidance and say, hey, we're typically interested in these things, but come to us with whatever your idea is. But the NIH also has very specific contracting mechanisms called FOAs, Federal Opportunity Announcements. Now with these FOAs, they typically focus towards growing problems and pandemic style interventions. In the past, they've actually had FOAs on things like pain medication reliance. I forgot the word for that, but people that were addicted to the pain medicines that came out, like Oxycontin and things, and the vast ramp up of that. So they've had special opportunities for that. And now, of course, they have special opportunities for COVID. As we go through here, though, a couple things to keep in mind. So the NIH has extended their deadline for any of their grants that had a due date between March 9th and May 1st. They will actually be accepting those through May 1st. What that means, particularly for the SBIR and STTR, is under the omnibus, NIH takes submissions 3 times a year, typically January 5th, on or about, unless the 5th falls on a Saturday or a holiday. April 5th, same caveat, or September 5th, again, same caveat. So with the April, this year was the 6th because of a holiday, or because of a weekend. With the April 6th close date that they had, if you did miss that, you actually still have a chance to get your proposal package in there. They are accepting those through May 1st with absolutely 0 penalties, 0 points taken off. This is kind of your gimme. If you've ever worked on one of these and just kind of missed that window by a little bit, it's your chance to actually refresh that right now and go, okay, I have at this point about 20 days, give or take, to get that in. Along with that, the NIH is making a lot of allowances for current grantees relating to travel, incurred costs, late reporting, things like that. They know that a lot of businesses have actually gone either totally telework, so it's very hard to travel to things like conferences, particularly when they're canceling them left and right, as they should be, and doing things like travel, incurring cost on that travel, which typically would have been an unallowed cost, and you'd have to kind of pay for that on your own. Now they're saying, okay, well, we understand these things. If you incurred a penalty because of a late cancellation on a conference or a hotel or whatever, you can go ahead and charge it to your grant. Also for the reporting, because when you work under any grant or contract, the people that paid for that want to know what's going on. So you're going to have some sort of due diligence, whether it's quarterly, whether it's annual, whatever that agency dictates. NIH is saying, we understand that a lot of businesses are under stress right now. They're under a crunch. You can go ahead and submit your report late to us. We're not going to dock you. That actually can be huge, particularly if you ever go after other funding. If it wasn't for this situation and you were late on your reporting or late on your auditing, that actually kind of gets noted, and that can affect your ability to be funded in the future. Now, though, they say it's a hand wave and say, okay, we understand other crap is going on. Don't worry about this. In addition to those mechanisms, though, NIH does have some special opportunities. A lot of what they're doing right now, they're putting out what they call, I guess it would be NOSI, Notice of Special Interest. And there's one from the Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases to actually study COVID-19. You would submit that through the normal omnibus, and it has an award cap of 220 or 252,131. They do have very weird award caps now, but that one is to look at what is happening with COVID-19, how is it growing, just the real basic studies of it, and that's under their phase 1. So with their phase 1s, it's 6 to 12 months, typically like 12 months, to do that kind of initial study, that research, that just looking at stuff. This is a non-clinical trial, though, which means that you can't be trying to implement a solution. You're just looking at the study of the disease itself. In addition to that, they're making a lot of administrative supplements and revisions to their current grants. And so what that means is for these revisions, they're actually allowing people to go back and say, what I'm working on, is very unique and very interesting based on the realm of science we discussed before, but I can also modify this to talk about COVID and to look at things like, the viral natural history. So how does it grow? How does it evolve? Things like the transmission, even looking at data analysis for how does this spread? How does it actually go through a quote unquote herd? How do we develop those technologies and those therapeutics that are going to provide that immunity basis? And just really a lot of other epidemiology factors. Now, with the administrative supplements, that's also allowing people to go back, not really change what they're focusing on, but if it has a specific target area already that aligns with COVID-19 health concerns, you can actually add a new research objective and request additional funding from NIH. That funding does change and vary based on every one of the institutes and kind of based on what the initial grant period was. But there is that ability to ask for more funding. I will make sure to send these slides out to people because we didn't have an Eventbrite. I don't have email addresses. The very last slide, though, will have my email address. If you're online and want a copy of these slides, please email me, because all of these links that are blue in here are actually redirects directly to these opportunities we're talking about. And I'll make sure that they're PDF'd and that they're available. In addition to what we covered, there is also a few different opportunities. Oh, I saw a question come up. Rowini, for the NOCs, it actually greatly depends. Some of them are very early stage with May 1st. Some of them are just dependent on what the different institutes are doing, because NIH kind of focuses or fractures a lot of their funding based on one of those 27 institutes. So you can have one of these notices that's applicable to 8 of the institutes, and each one of the institutes can have their own submission date and submission requirement. So it's kind of dependent on that institute, on what they're looking at and what they want to do. But again, I'll make sure that when these slides go out, that those links are actually clickable hyperlinks, and you can go directly to those kind of information repositories. Okay, so jumping back. I'm not going to go through kind of all of the opportunities here, but just note that there are a lot of special areas that NIH is looking for those health interventions, whether it's things like testing and diagnostics, which they have a few different programs that are going to be opening June 5th for that, whether it's the same thing, but it's actually applicable to the SBIR Omnibus, which would still have that. You can submit late now until May 1st, or whether it's for things like looking at environmental exposures and looking at the epidemiology factors that take the environmental impacts into a person's health and make a prediction on how susceptible they are to this disease. Along with the typical SBIR things, NIH has a kind of new program called BARDA, Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority. Essentially, BARDA is very SBIR-like. It is taking kind of those early stage technologies, or even sometimes late stage technologies, and how do you create an idea around it? How do you create a product? They recently added a lot of COVID-19 topics. This is an ongoing submission for this program, so there's not an actual cutoff or a due date. It's really looking at what is out there, what are you working on, and what is interesting. The regular one, the regular BAA or broad agency announcement under BARDA kind of looks at those, really focuses on late stage technologies. So these are going to be TRL 4 or greater typically, which a technology readiness level of 4 or greater typically means that there's been some bench testing, some validity, something that shows that this thing will actually work. Under BARDA, though, they also have the Division of Research, Innovation, and Ventures, or DRIVE, EASY program. Now, this is another BAA that also looks at those areas, has those special topics, again, has just been updated within the past 3 weeks to add COVID-19 topics. This one, though, looks at those early stage technologies. So that is that TRL 1 to 4. Now, a TRL 1 is really just, I had a dream about this, and I think it makes a lot of sense. There doesn't have to be a lot of research that goes into it. It just has to be, I kind of know what I'm talking about. I think this will work. Let me explore this more. So it is that very early stage, just the whole thought process and that kind of feasibility and readiness process. In addition to these different mechanisms, I'd recommend going to this website, the grants.nih.gov policy for natural disasters. They have a special page that has been put up that is dedicated totally to coronavirus. So any of these opportunities will be listed. The page is very long at the moment. So there is a whole lot of them to scroll through in their table, and it just shows how interested they are and how kind of critical and key they see technologies that could actually affect therapeutics, new types of PPE and face protections, things like that. One of the other things that NIH is currently doing is if you are a awardee and you have excess PPE supplies, you can donate them right now, and you can repurchase those at a later date with no penalty. So it's not like typical materials and supplies under a federal award where they want to know exactly where those went and how you completely use those within your experiment. At the moment, they see this problem as being so egregious and across so many domains that they say, you know what, if you got stuff that can actually help people, go ahead and donate it. We'll work with you on repurchasing those at a later date. So along with NIH, the National Science Foundation also has some kind of COVID-19 measures that have gone out. NSF recently published, I think it was on March 25th, a Dear Colleague letter, which a lot of their notices go out as kind of a Dear Colleague letter, which is just essentially them saying, hey, other science people, here's something that we're interested in. Now, this Dear Colleague letter really is kind of just calling for proposals that address COVID-19, that address things like, improved medical devices, sterilization advances so that you can reuse things like PBER, that you can actually reuse, bedding, what have you. Environmental technologies that will actually clean and filter the air so that you remove the particulates. Anything that can be that health and medical / biotech related intervention. National Science Foundation is very interested about those right now. And they're so interested that they've actually changed how they're looking at, or how they're actually doing the review process for SBIRs. So they expedited the project pitch and proposal review process. In your submission, reference COVID-19 and reference that Dear Colleague letter. Again, it's a blue link, so it'll be clickable when these go out. But when you reference that, they're actually cutting down how long it takes them. Typically with a project pitch that you submit, how it's been about a 2 to 3 week process where they look at it. I believe the last figure, they don't give an exact figure. They say they're trying to do their best and make them quicker. But I believe the last figure I saw was somewhere around a 48-hour turnaround for those project pitches, just so they can say, yeah, this sounds great. Get us a proposal. And they're also expediting the proposal review. They're hoping to make awards within 6 weeks of the receipt, which is a lot shorter than their typical time period of about 90 days or so. And they're making, I believe it was within 2 weeks, making it known that they are interested in an idea. Because of this expedited process, they haven't shortened what they require for the proposal, but when you look at the NSF SBIR proposal, there are certain sections that have a minimum requirement, like your technical discussion and research has a 5-page requirement, and a lot of the other ones have a minimum of 1 page. And in the past, it's been frowned upon if you are closer to that 9-page minimum, because they don't think you know enough about your idea to actually fully describe it. Well, now they're saying, hey, if it's pretty close to that 9 pages, we don't care. We want to fund things. Get us the data, get us the information. We can discuss the other things. We can discuss how it's actually going to go towards market. We can discuss these things that you haven't figured out yet, because this is such an imperative for us to get technologies out there and for us to get products towards market. Another thing that NSF is doing that's kind of expediting their whole review process is when you have something that does human subjects research, which anything related to COVID is going to be very heavy human subjects research. Typically, you have had to have an IRB, or an institutional review board. I think that's what IRB stands for. That has been fully approved, that is hosted by whoever the host is, and that you've already gone through the processes. Now you can submit under human subjects research and not have your IRB fully in place. It can actually be sitting at the pending determination, and they'll go ahead and accept it. They'll go ahead and make awards, and then the IRB thing can be figured out later. This kind of just shows that they are really changing their stodgy process that they had for a lot of stuff and saying, okay, We need to be a lot more flexible. We need to be a lot more giving. We need to be a lot more fluid and quicker when we're making these determinations and when we're trying to see stuff hit the market. Surprisingly, USDA also is interested in COVID. A lot of their stuff, though, really focuses on the byproducts and not the exact like health intervention things. And what I mean by the byproducts is that, you know, technologies that are going to help get products to market faster. Because anybody that's been into a grocery store over the last month knows that those shelves are pretty bare as people kind of freak out and buy way too much, you know, produce. Now they're looking at, well, how do we get produce to the shelves faster so that we can actually stock, we can supply, and that we don't create artificial food deserts. So USDA has opened a special submission window. The special submission window follows their normal funding amounts, their normal process, their normal proposal, just packages that are in their typical SBIR. This one is due on May 1st though, and it has to fit one of the topics that is specifically relevant towards COVID. And they, you know, kind of point to the most relevant topic areas are their 8.3, 8.5, 8.6, and 8.12, which again really do focus on those things for ranching, food scarcity, food safety, things like that. If you're doing forestry products, it might be very hard to say that COVID is currently impacting that, unless it's just people, which, yeah, it's going to be impacted. But those are the ones that they're looking at. Any submission must adhere to all of their requirements. So again, their typical requirements are phase 1 is 8 months with a $100,000 budget. With these special topics and these ones that are due May 21st, same guidance, 8 months, $100,000. You have to have your 17-page proposal package that is spaced at 1.5. So it's actually about 12 pages of text. Everything that would normally go into the proposal still goes into it. It's just they're making very rapid responses and very rapid kind of determinations on these. And you do have to include the COVID-19 rapid response in the title for them to actually look at it as one of these new packages that are due on May 21st. And like the other programs, I didn't mention it with NSF, but it's also a part of what NSF is doing. And I originally brought this up under NIH. They're adhering to the March 19th Office of Management and Budget Memorandum, this number here, M-20-17. This is the one that really speaks to that loss of operation when working under a grant. So the things about being able to offset charges for, you know, late fees or penalties for not traveling, offsetting, you know, reporting requirements, things like that. All granting agencies are having to fall under this administrative relief memorandum. So any granting agency is having to make, I wouldn't call it a sacrifice, it's not a sacrifice, but any of these granting agencies are having to let people go ahead and, you know, kind of plead that case of, look, this is what I was going to do. I was going to travel to this conference. It was very important for my research. You know, it's kind of the thing that's going to move my research forward, and they canceled it. And the granting agency has to go, okay, well, let's discuss that. How can we, you know, help you? How can we actually refactor? How can we put other funds in front of you possibly to help make up for this loss? Department of Defense also has a few different opportunities right now that really speak towards that COVID-19. They have a task force that is driven by AFWorks, which is the novel innovation, kind of let's call it an accelerator under the Air Force. It's called Unite and Fight. And under this one, it's actually not looking at like innovative ideas. This is more about procurement. So if you can make, they're making priority procurement for businesses that are doing things like, you know, improved welfare, accelerated production capacity. So if you can print off a whole bunch of face masks, or you can make a whole bunch of PPE equipment at a rapid pace and put it into people's hands, essentially they want to talk to you. This is actually a Google form you fill out. Go to the Unite and Fight blue link there. And you kind of put, who are you? What can you do? How do you fit under this new initiative? And they want to actually make these procurement awards very, very quickly so that they can get these materials, these supplies, essentially these things that are going to save lives into the hands of the people that can save those lives. As well as that, a couple of the departments under DoD, or service components is actually what they're called, are making special topics right now. The Air Force has an out-of-cycle opportunity under their SBIR and STTR program for a direct to phase 2. So that's really interesting, particularly because the direct to phase 2 allows you to skip over the entire phase 1. So rather than doing that feasibility, getting that little bit of money over a 6 to 12 month period to do some research, as long as you can show that the research is there, that you know what you're doing, and that you've pretty much already done what would typically be required during a phase 1, you can move into a phase, you can directly move into a phase 2. Now, phase 2s are a much longer period. Typically, they're about 2 years, and they're a larger pool of money. Depending on the service component under DoD, it can be anywhere from $750,000 all the way up to $1.5 million. So as long as you have something that is within the scope of what they're looking for, and it's a dual use technology, which means it's either already commercially available or it's already in a testing and development and kind of beta where people have actually fielded it, people have used it, there is data that shows that it has worked correctly out in the field of use, you can look at these opportunities and you can submit a package. So their focus areas under this are kind of decision support, personnel needs, readiness, logistics, medical, and blue sky. So decision support is just kind of that echelon of information that says, here's the information, here's what you do with it, here's the things that can actually happen. Personnel needs, and personnel needs under here not only cover physical health, they also cover mental health. So that total physiological look at supporting their soldiers out in the field. Readiness typically points to combat readiness, so things that can actually make them get into the field quicker. But it's not just combat as in they're shooting at people. It's also combat as in getting into affected areas and combating the effects of pandemics and things like that. Logistics, so being able to move supplies, being able to move things like equipment, things like face masks, things like shields. Medical, it's pretty self-explanatory. And then their Blue Sky Initiative. The Blue Sky Initiative is essentially them saying, there's a lot of stuff that we need that we don't even know we need, and we don't know how we would put it in. So come to us, tell us what you're working on. If it's something we think is cool and we go, holy crap, I can use that, there could be funding for it. That is their Blue Sky Initiative because it covers everything under the sun. The Department of Navy also recently released an out-of-cycle BAA for dual-use technologies. So that means a technology that is not only available, or that would be interesting and available for use for the military, but also for the commercial world as well. It just went into pre-release. Under the Department of Defense, pre-releases are very, very important when you're looking at any of these opportunities, because the pre-release period is the only period where you can directly talk to the people that need this. So the people that actually made these topics that said, I need this and this is how it needs to be fielded, under the pre-release, you can contact them. You can give them a call and say, hey, let's talk about your need real fast. Let's talk about the pain points. Let's talk about how they need to be addressed. Once this goes into an open, which will be April 27th, you cannot directly contact that topic author anymore. Any questions have to go through an online system, and then everybody sees that question. So you want to make sure that any proprietary information isn't in those questions that get posted. But it also loses that personal touch where you can't find out exactly what they need and why they need it. So under this out of cycle BAA, it includes topics not only related to, underwater vehicles, submersibles, stuff like that, but also rapid and smart manufacturing and logistics that could be impacted by COVID-19 concerns. So if you can't move product through a country anymore because the borders are pretty much shut down, then how are you actually transporting that? How are you getting the logistics? How are you making those determinations on where things are manufactured, how they get into the DoD's hands? Things that look at that and things that are actually providing, those are typically more data analysis, product creation, readiness line creation. So those are usually more abstract concepts. They're looking at those. They want to know about them. This one has a phase 1 base for 150K over a 5-month period of performance. And NASA up until yesterday didn't have much. They had actually just pushed their proposal due date back to April 20th. But yesterday they actually came out with some more guidance. So in their SBIR proposals, they had been allowing people to make travel plans to their Innovation and Opportunity Conference in Denver. That thing has been moved to a non-in-person event. I realize that's a weird way to say it, but that's how it is on their site. So you can't put travel funds in for that anymore. Also, they're allowing for STTR proposals to be submitted without a research agreement or without a budget for the research institution, as well as any proposal to be submitted without signed letters of commitment from subcontractors or consultants. If they are awarded, though, and if you're selected, at the point of selection, you have to deliver that documentation to them within 10 days. But just to get your package in, just to get your proposal in, and just to get into the system for review, you don't have to worry about having that documentation right now because they know that there's a lag for some people. They know that, particularly if you're working with a research institute like New Mexico State University, there's nobody on campus. We are all available remotely. That's why I'm doing this thing from my living room. But they are making that kind of known that, hey, we understand you're having to work within these very strange bounds that nobody's had to work with before. Just talk with the research institution, make sure you're both on the same page. And if we want to fund it, get the documentation to us at that point. So those are kind of the big things that are being affected on an agency level from COVID-19 when you look at not only the SBIR and STTR programs, but some of their other, research leaning, innovation leaning programs. Real quickly, we're going to talk about some of the other support programs that are available. So the SBA on the federal level has made a couple things. I'm not an expert on these, so it's going to be very brief on the information, but there are 4 things that kind of are very important from the national SBA level. One is the Paycheck Protection Program. This is an incentive from the SBA for businesses to keep workers on payroll. As anybody that's been paying attention has known, there's been a lot of furloughs, there's been a lot of layoffs, there's been a lot of just, I can't pay you because nobody's paying me. If you keep the employees on the payroll for 8 weeks and the money is actually used for payroll, rent, mortgage interest, or utilities, it's not a loan at that point, it's actually a grant. So you don't have to pay that money back. And you can qualify for up to 2.5 times the average monthly salaries. So that's a little bit more than you would have been paying the people over that 8 weeks anyways, on an average. There are multiple lenders across New Mexico that will work with you on creating this package. There was a notice that actually just went out either last night or this morning that what was formerly known as ASEAN in New Mexico is actually working under this program, and people can come to them to get help filling out, because originally this is a loan. If you don't keep the people on for 8 weeks, and the money isn't used for payroll, rent, mortgage interest, or utilities, you have to pay the money back. But as long as you meet those requirements, it's a grant. You don't have to pay that back. There's also the economic injury disaster loan and loan advance. So these are loans of up to $2 million with no payment for 12 months. So you can also do a long-term repayment plan of up to 30 years. So these are kind of those emergency loans of, I need to be able to continue to exist. And you can use them for fixed debts, payroll, a bunch of other things that are being affected by this current situation. And you don't have to start making your first payment for 1 year after the loan is given to you. It is a 3.5% or 3.75% fixed interest rate for businesses that don't have credit available elsewhere. If you are a business and you do have credit available elsewhere, you can get funding elsewhere. This program isn't actually for you. You cannot apply. You're not eligible. But if you're tapped out, if you're maxed out, if there's nobody else that'll give you credit, this is a great program just to get emergency funds to continue operating. And you don't have to worry about, how am I going to pay back this interest? How am I going to actually pay back this principal for 1 year? You don't have to start those payments. They're also doing a loan forbearance under their 7A loan. So their 7A loan for that small business development loan, the SBA will actually pay the principal and interest of current loans for a period of 6 months. And any new loans, they'll pay the principal and interest up to September 27th. And then the Express Bridge loan, which is entirely set up to provide gap funding between your submission of the economic injury disaster loan and when you actually get that funding. The loan is repaid in full or in part by your, they call it EICL loan. So that is a way, while you're waiting to hear back about that economic injury disaster loan, that you can continue operation and get a quick injection of capital and cash. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mariah to talk about some of the NMEDD resources.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariah Tomer, and I'm here on behalf of the New Mexico Economic Development Department. I'm the director of the Office of Science and Technology, and I just want to give you a kind of a brief overview of some of the resources that we have available to small businesses during this pandemic. So one of them being the EDD COVID-19 Business Loan Guarantee Program. This is a loan that's up to 80% of the principal or a maximum of $50,000. Another program that we're offering is the LIDA 0% interest loans. And these companies have to be qualified as either a manufacturer, a non-retail service business, with more than 50% of their revenue generated out of state. And so we have all these resources located on our website. So I don't know, Del, if you have the link, but it's gonm.biz/about-us/COVID-19 response. And so we have there both the resources at the federal level as well as at the state. One other thing I wanted to mention that Del briefly discussed was the Paycheck Protection Program. So one thing I think that's important to point out is that the SBA recently revised the rules for this program, and it is now allowing more VC-backed companies to participate. So I think that's something to keep in mind. I know a lot of these efforts are towards mid and large businesses, but the Paycheck Protection Program is something that can help startups. Another thing I wanted to talk about, which is not on these slides, is some of the grants that we normally offer with regards to SBIR. Because of kind of the transient times, things are changing, and it's possible that these programs may evolve to address COVID-19 related projects, but I'll just kind of briefly mention them. One is the New Mexico Small Business Innovation Research Grant, also known as the SBIR Matching Grant. This is a grant that provides kind of business development assistance to companies that have either a phase 1 or phase 2 SBIR. So it's focused on helping companies pay for their IP-related costs. We were paying for travel, meeting with investors, things of that sort. And so these grants typically are awarded on a competitive basis. So we match them at $25,000 for businesses that have a phase 1 SBIR federal grant, and $100,000 for companies that were awarded a phase 2 grant. And so in addition to that, my office offers a competitive grant called the Science and Technology Business Startup Grant. This is a grant of $10,000, and essentially it's focused on helping companies that are in aerospace, bioscience, cybersecurity, intelligent manufacturing, and sustainable and green energy that have a unique product or service. And so it's possible, as I said, that our new fiscal year starts in July, and these programs may evolve a little bit to address this. And so we will update you on that when the time comes. But one other thing I'd like to inform you about and invite you to participate in, that we're working with the governor's office on an economic recovery plan, and the governor is hosting a remote conference on this economic recovery plan and other COVID-19 related efforts today at 2 p.m. on Facebook Live. So I encourage you all to participate, to listen in, and as I said, things are very transient, so feel free to reach out to me or to Dell, and if you have any questions, I'll try to direct you to the right resources. One other thing you can find on our website are additional resources for grants. These are non-SBIR. One of these is the Altogether New Mexico Fund and the New Mexico Grantmakers Association. So I would encourage you to visit our website, gonm.biz, and there you'll see a link for COVID-related grant programs and resources. And yep, thank you so much for having me today.
No, thank you for being a part of it and providing more information on the resources. Mariah, I'll make sure to include those links whenever these go out. I actually broke off the content into a couple different slides here, but here is that link that Mariah was talking about for the gonm.biz/about-us/COVID-19 resources, and also Mariah's email address if you need to get a hold of her. So along with the SBA as well as the NMEDD programs, there are other support programs out there that provide guidance, advice, assistance, whatever you need during these times. We're going to talk real quickly about some of the ways that Arrowhead Center helps the small businesses across New Mexico. 4 of our programs actually have very large bearing for the current situation. The NMFAST program, which is one of the programs I'm a part of, actually is everything SBIR and STTR assistance related that New Mexico offers. So we are the SBIR and STTR assistance program for New Mexico. We work across all of New Mexico. We work with anybody that is interested in these federal programs. So the first half of the presentation, where I dove deeply into what is the SBIR and STTR programs and what are these different agencies doing. If you have any questions on that, need some assistance, need some development guidance, what have you, contact us. We're the people that will help you put together that complete and compelling proposal package. We'll help you identify your agency and topics. We'll provide that oversight and guidance. Pretty much the only thing we don't do is create content. The writing's up to you. We can't help you write it, but we can actually help you frame things. We also offer our Sprints program, or I guess it's a suite of programs now that really is an accelerator that focuses on customer discovery and idea validation. So getting out there, getting the data that there's somebody that's going to be interested in what you're creating, that the product you're creating matches a need in the marketplace, that there are pain points that you're going to address for that customer segment. That is what the sprint program is about. They are typically 5 to 8 week programs that actually dive into what are you creating, who's interested in it, how do you get out there, how do you find those people, how do you get in front of them and stay at least 6 feet away from them, either that or just get in front of them virtually at this point. But it is about that, how do we address it, how do we actually figure out who is going to be interested in this, and am I creating something that's going to be interesting to someone and that somebody's going to buy, without putting a lot of resources into creating a product or creating an idea that may not align with a need. We also have the Ventures program, which is the alumni program for the sprints. It helps continue that development, identifying funding opportunities, as well as runs our enterprise advisor network, which we have 45 plus advisors from a lot of different industries, walks of life, who will dedicate an hour to talk with a business about what are they going through, what are they struggling with, how do they get over some of those hurdles. So these are people that have been there, that have actually succeeded, that have been where you are, and they can answer questions related to that and kind of be that voice of reason and that champion that I did it, you can do it, here's how I did it. Talk to me, let's figure out your issue, let's figure out a solution for your problem. And then we also have the Arrowhead Innovation Fund, which provides some seed capital investment into promising New Mexico businesses. There are some stipulations with the fund, but it is the way to actually put money into New Mexico businesses that are working on something that's interesting. I'm going to gloss over some of the information here because a lot of it I covered. One thing that I do want to largely cover here with the Arrowhead Innovation Fund is there are investments of up to $150,000 for companies with a pre-money valuation that is under $2 million. The company has to have some sort of exit strategy or liquidity event that they're shooting for within a 5-year time period. And AIF is not a first investor. So there has to be some sort of traction, whether that's a different venture capital, whether you've actually received angel funding, or whether you've received one of these grants and contracts under the SBIR program. So that counts as a first investment where AIF will actually come in and provide additional investments into the company. And that's it. So again, everybody, please, that has been on the line here, that has actually gone through and stuck around while I talked. If you want a copy of these slides, please email me, delmac@ad.nmsu.edu, and I'll make sure to get these out to everybody. I apologize as there wasn't an Eventbrite for me to actually collect the email addresses, but when I open it up now to any questions that people have. If you have questions on any of the programs that Arrowhead has, questions on any of the SBIR STTR, or even questions on any of the NMEDD programs, this is a great opportunity to ask. Okay, well, there are no questions. I want to thank everybody for being here and for listening to us talk about kind of all these different ways that we are providing some assistance, we can provide some assistance, or for all of these different new and novel kind of opportunities that are out there. One thing to note is that under our Sprints program, our new BizSprint program has applications that are open now, and it's actually being supported by the New Mexico Economic Development Department. But if nobody has any questions, again, please feel free to email me. Go to our website, arrowheadcenter.nmsu.edu. And if you go to the contact page, you can actually get a hold of somebody for non-SBIR STTR assistance. If you want to figure out some of these programs, if you want to find out more about any of our accelerators, any of the assistance we provide, anything along those lines, that contact form is the way to get a hold of one of us. For SBIR assistance, go to /nm-fast or just email me. I'd be more than happy to talk with you and help you figure out how you can get funding for your idea and how you can respond to some of these novel opportunities. But thank you again, everybody. And if you want the slides, please email me. I'll make sure to get the slides out to everybody.